Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and today we're going to talk about labor mechanics. You see, the Chaos Dwarfs have a mechanic called labor, which is actually not really a new thing. It's just a fancy take on both the Dark Elves, which is the old system with the slave mechanic, and obviously the new system that was introduced, which in turn was actually just taken from the Slaaneshi faction. Yeah, a lot of stuff gets kind of recycled, which is not a bad thing, I'm not saying it is. But the system is interesting, very clearly so, because the Chaos Dwarfs do not need to use growth to actually sort out the construction of buildings. Sure, they still have to tear up, but it's based around labor, something completely different, yet kinda similar in terms of function. Labor is acquired in the most simple way for a total war game. You just get into combat, and as long as you start getting into more and more combat, you'll be able to get more labor. This means that if you're an aggressive player, you'll end up being able to tear up your stuff fairly quickly. Obviously, you'll need to take into account raw materials and armaments and all the other stuff, but the main focus is labor. Not only that, but labor can be used for dictats, which was once again taken away from the Slaanesh mechanic and also now recently used on the Dark Elves slavery mechanic. Now, this isn't a video focused on labor, as you can imagine, but rather the Dark Elves. The thing that the Dark Elves and the Chaos Dwarfs have most in common is their shared love of, labor, right? So, it's actually very, very similar. They both heavily require labor to build up their infrastructure, to get their citadels going and so on. And the problem is that the Dark Elves have a similar system now. It was actually introduced during the Immortal Empire's launch, and many people thought that this was going to be a stepping stone to whatever would come alongside the Chaos Dwarfs, myself included. Yet, no, it stayed the same, which is actually really disappointing. Like I said, from a lore-friendly perspective, both will use the same type of labor mechanics because, yeah, it's just how it is. Obviously, no raw materials and obviously no armaments needed because the Dark Elves don't actually bother making very high, powerful armaments, but they use the labor to be able to build up cities. They use the labor to build up fortresses. The Dark Elves might be more in number than the Chaos Dwarfs, but not that much more, so it's not growth which is affecting their ability to build, but rather how many people of other nations they can capture and use to build up their territories. Like, I can be perfectly honest, I actually really do enjoy the labor mechanic, and the first thing I thought of when I played it with the Chaos Dwarfs was, this is something that also could affect the Dark Elves. This is something that could be a nice change to the Dark Elves, considering that they lost their main way of making money. Rather than having a way to cheese cash, how about if you could use slaves as a big resource? Seeing as you're always very aggressive with the Dark Elves, it's a very aggressive campaign, slaves will be generated quite naturally, you could use that to build up your cities from tier 1 all the way to tier 5, using that as your main source, which would make the Dark Elves fairly unique. The current system is just not good. I will be very honest here. It's very standard for Total War, which is perfectly fine. Obviously, that's the usual thing. Growth is your way to get bigger cities. But if they're trying to make stuff quite unique, which we've already seen many races and factions, you know, the Chaos Warriors, the Beastmen, the Wood Elves, now the Chaos Dwarfs, all getting quite unique implementations of stuff, this could actually be a way to make the Dark Elves much more unique without the need of a proper rework, because the Dark Elves don't generally need a rework. It's just really this. That would count as their rework. Because let's be honest, out of the 4 races in Warhammer 2, the Skaven are in their perfect state, barring unique mechanics for Queek and Skrulk and possibly Tretch. The Dark Elves are in a pretty good place. They actually have always done very well. This is why you can always see the Dark Elves very much expanding due to their very powerful roster. What they need is a proper labor mechanic, well, slavery here, and then some unique mechanics for their other lords. The High Elves will need some stuff, and the Lizardmen need a complete rework, but the Dark Elves have always been quite high tier. So, let's look at the labor mechanics for the Chaos Dwarfs, and let's just run like a hypothetical with the Dark Elves. Slavery for the Dark Elves would be the same way as labor. So, you'd get into combat, you'd pick up slaves, or even from raiding, or sacking settlements, the usual stuff. That all remains exactly the same. Then, instead of growth, you would actually use your labor. So you wouldn't have any raw materials, you wouldn't have armaments. That doesn't really need to be transferred over. It would just be the actual labor. You would need, say, 400 slaves to get to tier 2. This would be for your main settlement, and then you would need 500 slaves to get to tier 3, 600 to get to tier 4, and 700 to get to tier 5. I'm just giving rough numbers here. It would probably be higher considering how aggressive the Dark Elves are, and the fact is there are some buildings that generate slaves naturally. There's already a benefit here, as you wouldn't need to use treasury to build up your capital. I know that might not sound like a lot, but as you start taking more and more capital cities, this frees up that cash to be used in other buildings and obviously on your armies. Now again, all this is lore friendly, and even more so when you decide to have the actual panel where you'll be able to send over your laborers. I'm just saying that because, you know, YouTube algorithm, through your different settlements. Again, you'll have to use treasury to finalize sending them over, but it does make it easier for you if you have a funnel system of acquiring a lot of labor in one portion of the world, and you can send it to the other portion to be able to build up those settlements. That's the areas that you'd want to build up your safer economy-based settlements. Dictats would remain the same, because at the end of the day, the system that the Dark Elves has is pretty much exactly what the Chaos Dwarfs have now, but then the rest of the Dark Elf stuff could actually stay the same. You know, the rest of the buildings would stay being treasury-based, right? Well, not counting the tech tree, which could be changed in future patches, but as a general thing, including this labor mechanic, the rest of the buildings would cost treasury. You've already got a bunch of buildings in the actual, building trees, which will naturally cost slaves and generate slaves too. This is on a per turn basis. So already you've got everything that's actually needed, just the framework isn't there, which is a bit of a shame, as that could actually fix up a lot of problems with the Dark Elves, make them a bit more fun, kind of say, you know, we're sorry we got rid of the cheese, but here's something that's going to give you a better economy anyway, and just have a little bit of fun with it, you know? I honestly believe that this could be a really good fix for the Dark Elves. And it's very important to note that the Chaos Dwarves are taking a lot of mechanics from a lot of other races and factions, so they might as well lend something unique towards a faction that really desperately needs a little bit of a glow up. As much as I like the Dark Elves, I would love something more lore-friendly, and this is definitely lore-friendly. It would give them a little bit more of a boost. It might be quite interesting to see how the AI even performs, as the Chaos Dwarf AI using this mechanic does actually move around quite well. But not only that, again, it will bring in a stylized new form of play for another race. More uniqueness would be more replayability for this game, and I've already got, 2,000 hours in Game 3? I want more. I obviously will get more as more DLC and more content gets released and so on. But it would be cool to go back to the Dark Elves, which I really don't see too much of a reason to go back to, with some shiny new toys to play with. Now, I don't know if Creative Assembly do have plans for this in the future, but I feel like this could have been the perfect time to introduce it, as there is a little bit of drama going on with obviously the price increase and so on, which I can't really comment about until the 12th when I can drop my review, but this could have been a way to introduce the mechanic, show people how it would work if they haven't bought the Chaos Dwarfs yet, and they might then be interested to try the Chaos Dwarfs, if you get what I mean, right? Especially since the FLC isn't really tied to a DLC, I can be honest here, there's not a lot of FLC, so a little bit of a rework would have been actually pretty nice, right? It doesn't have to be a full-fledged rework, it could have been just like Immortal Empires, just kind of fixing up Norsca. This could have probably fixed up the Dark Elves. So I think that we as a community should ask for this. Now, respectfully, of course, you can't really scream at Creative Assembly for this. Maybe they've got it planned already, but I think that we should start voicing our opinions and start saying, listen, this would be great for the Dark Elves. Please give it to the Dark Elves, and hopefully they'll be listening, because I know that they do watch my videos, I know that they do read the forums and all that type of stuff, so yeah, but I guess time will tell after we voice our wants, I guess, not really concerns. But let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. Let's start a bit of a discussion. Discussion, I think, is key here. And for those of you interested, I will be playing more today on twitch.tv/The Great Book of Grudges. We're going to check out the Realm of Chaos campaign after many, many demands. And yeah, we're going to play Astrogoth Ironhand, because we've already pretty much conquered the world with the 2 other legendary lords. But yeah, if you want to pop by, say hi. It would be nice to see you. It's always good to chat some lore. Until then, have a nice day, guys, and I'll see you all again very, very soon.